चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साधवैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्ये श्रीराधा कृष्णपादा सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखा नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नित्यानंद नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निरविशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौरकृष्णे नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत तप्त कांचन गौरांगी शिराधे वृंदावनेश्वरी भानुदेवी प्रणमामि शिलाचल निवासाय नित्याय पांचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हे श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे राम 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 संघं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुजी। 6:29 today. विपतिश्च शरीरे मे रोमहर्षाश्च जायते काण्डिवं श्रंसते हस्तान् त्वाक्षैव परिधायते. My whole body is trembling. My hair is standing on end. My bow Gandiva is slipping from my hand and my skin is burning. There are two kinds of trembling of the body and two kinds of standings of the hair on end. Such phenomena occur either in great spiritual ecstasy or out of great fear under the material conditions. There is no fear in transcendental realization. Arjuna's symptoms in this situation are out of material fear, namely loss of life. This is evident from other symptoms also. He became so impatient that his famous Gandiva was slipping from his hands, and because his heart was burning within him, he was feeling a burning sensation of the skin. All these are due to a material conception of life. X30. न शक्नोमि अवस्थातुं ब्रह्मतीव च मे मनः Nimittani cha pashyami viparitani keshava. I am now unable to stand here any longer. I am forgetting myself and my mind is reeling. I see only causes of misfortune, O Krishna, killer of the Keshi demon. But due to his impatience, Arjuna was unable to stay on the battlefield. And he was forgetting himself on account of the weakness of the mind. Excessive attachment for material things puts a man in such a bewildering condition of existence. Vayam dvitiya viniveshatasya. Such fearfulness and loss of mental equilibrium take place in persons who are too affected by material conditions. Arjuna envisioned only painful reverses in the battlefield. He would not be happy, even by gaining victory over the foe. The words nimittani, viparitani are significant. When a man sees only frustration in his expectations, he thinks, why am I here? Everyone is interested in himself and his own welfare. No one is interested in the Supreme Self. Arjuna is showing ignorance of his real self-interest by Krishna's will. One's real self-interest lies in Vishnu or Krishna. The conditioned soul forgets this and therefore suffers material pain. Arjuna thought that his victory in the battle would only be a cause of lamentation for him. All these are due to a material conception of life. In last class, we established the point that Krishna has tightened the examination, increased the difficulty level of the examination for Arjuna. And therefore, we see Arjuna breaking down. But the point to always remember is that the battlefield is not yet started. So, what is happening is that the Lord is training his devotee to rise. Therefore, this is net practice which is going on. Our experience very much depends on how we perceive the situations around us. In this episode, at this juncture, we can see the battlefield is the same. We are seeing two different responses of Arjuna. We are seeing two different uh, we are seeing two different reaction patterns from Arjuna's personality. But if we analyze the situation, the stimuli is the same. There is no change which has happened in the battlefield. All the generals were anyways present. Sometime before also, when Arjuna was challenging that Kshatriya spirit, let me see who is there. So that I can see their strength, so that we can smash them off. So that reaction also, the battlefield was the same. The attendance was the same. And now also the attendance is the same when Arjuna started quivering, trembling. So what is driving the change of experience is an important realm which needs to be understood. It is not that situations drive the experience. But it is exactly how we perceive the situation which drives the experience. Situation is the same in both these response patterns. But what has changed is the perception. What has changed is the perception. So we need to learn this methodology of channelizing our perceptions in a proper way. So in that sense, we can understand that we take in spiritual sciences necessitates the student to learn the perception engineering, how to channelize one's perceptions properly. Because it is ultimately perceptions and how we see things as what drives our experience. And our experience will drive our moves, and our moves drive our destiny. So that means if we can see things in the right way, most of it is solved. Only the manifestation remains in due course of time. So the previous perception was, okay, these are my enemies. And that enemy was boosting Arjuna's confidence. That perception was boosting Arjuna's Kshatriya spirit, and he was all set to fight. And he was all set to uh, lay down the opposite enemy path. Lay down. And now Arjuna starts relating with everyone in a different way. No, they are friends. And when he starts relating with a different way, now he's not able to pick up his bow. He becomes so weak. So similarly, we will see that whether we are strong, whether we are weak, whether we are focused, whether we are confused, whether we are determined, or whether we are in a liquefied state or a gaseous existence, all depends on what perception roadway we take and what roadway we choose to allow our consciousness to flow in. Everything depends on that. So if we perceive the reality of the world, now if all we see in the world around is uh, is a competition for money, is a competition for land, wealth, so on. If that's all what we see, the experience that predetermines the experience. The experience what we will have will be fearful, be insecure, will be very restricted in our spiritual life, because any step towards spiritual life will always have this uh, back this back force of fear, insecurity, because all we perceive is the darkness of this world. Because we see that, and everything is very restless, everything is tottering platform, and that inhibits a devotee very bad. But on the other hand, if we perceive that okay, the world may be whatever the world is, Krishna is there with me, if that is a perception, then that will give confidence, then that will help one, that will give confidence and faith, that will give clarity how to uh, how to inject spiritual substance into day-to-day mundane duties, material duties. That will give one confidence to prioritize spiritual life and base one's material endeavors and duties on the roots of spiritual life. Perception is what drives everything. You have a question? So what is the reason? The question is Arjuna knew initially also that his relatives are there, but now when the time is coming, he is trembling. What is the reason? Why there is this perception change? So the point is that intrinsically or superficially, the arrangement of this material world is such that it is going to shake us up. The lesson is that if we give too much emphasis on pratyaksha, then we'll be shaken up. Too much emphasis on pratyaksha will be shaken up. But if you see things from Shabda, then we will be reinstated. So the lesson here is like that. That's why we have been pointing out this aspect of Arjuna's fluffing the mental energy in this way was not a right move, was a mistake. Because if we fluff too much, we will get bewildered. Mental energy is like that. Therefore, We see on the part of a sadhaka, it is it is not wrong to be very protective about our spiritual life. It is not wrong to be little protective or little uh, to always have that confinement that let me be little more this side than a little more that side, because that side there is a lot of suction. The moment we touch it, the suction is going to drift us off very badly. This side, we are nicely protected that way. So that is the point actually. So therefore, if one's material layout is little bit topsy-turvy also, still it is okay. If the spiritual setting is very strongly in place. But if one compromises on spiritual setting just to set right the material, just to set right the material plane, then that suction may drift on very badly actually. And the problem is that in the material plane, anyways there is no stability also. Anyways there is no stability also. So this is an important lesson which we can learn at this point. So especially, this becomes especially very true. We can see this observation. This becomes especially very true when devotees pass out. So when devotees pass out, start working in various corporate and private scenarios, then what happens? Our interface with mental energy is increasing. Because uh, we are all located in different physical locations. Previously, we were all there in one building. We're all sleeping in the temple hall. If we don't wake up, somebody comes and wakes us up. And still, if we are transcendental, the Mahamantra wakes up. The Mahamantra writing will wake us up. So the next day we are. So that way life has been very protective. But then we go to different physical locations, and there are different kinds of standards, different kind of spiritual setups, and different kind of priorities, different work cultures. Interface with mental energy is increasing. So now it becomes an added responsibility to make sure that we have sufficient spiritual intake. We have strong spiritual connectivity. Otherwise, the material energy is zooming in, and that is going to affect our perception, and that is going to affect our overall disposition in spiritual life. So we need to take added endeavors to make sure we are strongly connected. That is the point. Like say for example, we have yatra. Yatra is an uplifting experience, very strongly uplifting. But then it requires a lot of endeavor on the part of a devotee to make sure that he goes, makes space, financially, time-wise, days-wise, and make himself available for the yatra. If we make ourselves available, the spiritual energy is going to uplift us. But suppose one is not because there is a chunk of 9 days leave, then before have settings, it requires finances also. Everything is involved. Suppose if one is taking his whole family, the mother, father are there, relatives are there, there's a big number of people, that much finance. So, but if one makes space for it, then it's uplifting like that. Like say for example in yatra also. In yatra also one has to be a little bit careful. One has to balance the socialization factor. Because if just one one socializes a lot, then anyways one is tired a little bit like that. Then actually the lecture starts at 5 o'clock. If one reaches at 6:30, one is losing, is it not? One reaches 7 o'clock, then one is losing the spiritual intake. So one has to be focused. So that's what the focus always requires an energy on the part of a sadhaka to make himself available in the flow of spiritual energy. So if we subjugate ourselves to the to the flow, where the so where the flux of spiritual energy is there, then that flux is going to anyways uplift us. One spiritual potential energy is going to increase. That is an important lesson which we can learn here actually. Now another question comes up here. The second question is that we are seeing in text 28, Prabhupada is glorifying, oh, Arjuna is pure devotee of the Lord. So pure devotee, very compassionate. So compassion, very good quality. So Arjuna, very virtuous. Wonderful. Text 29, Prabhupada is saying. Text 29, Prabhupada is saying, you see, there are two types of trembling. One is out of spiritual ecstasy, and one is out of getting horrified by material energy. Right? So Prabhupada is saying that, okay, you see, there are two types of trembling. Right? So either one has to be drowned in spiritual energy, or one has to be drowned in materialism. Then only one will have these kind of symptoms. Romancha, Kampa, Shutaranga, Bhajo. So that happens at two times. Isn't it? So yes, so one will be in ecstasy two times. Suppose one is in yatra, very spiritually uplifting experience, it's rocking kirtan going on. One will be in ecstasy like that. But suppose there is end semester examination, like that one is not studied nicely, even after bunking the morning program, the studies are not proper. Then also one will be in ecstasy, Romancha, Kampa, Shutaranga, Bhaja, like that. And Prabhupada is very interestingly telling here, Prabhupada is saying that you see, Arjuna's case is not the transcendental case. Arjuna's case is out of material fear. And Prabhupada is making that point very clear, Just like we see, symptoms of ecstasy, pure devotees can show, but sometimes our first year, second year also show. So then we make it very clear that this is out of PDS, right? So yeah, this is out of PDS. So nowadays there are newer kind of infections also. PDS is one infection, pure devotee syndrome. PDS is pure devotee syndrome. That infection, that epidemic is very rampant in IIT campus. Because intellectualism is a breeding ground for that. Nowadays there is a new symptom actually. I was in Australia, devotees told me new disease and epidemic is now flaring in, like that. So immediate surgeries are required. I said, okay, what is the disease? They said this is SDS. Like that. So SDS is another infection actually. So what is this SDS? SDS stands for senior devotee syndrome. So a candidate thinks that he has become a senior devotee now, senior devotee syndrome, like that. Senior, like that. So now we are actually researching and making vaccinations and surgical techniques for how to tackle this senior devotee syndrome, SD, like that. So in the same way, in the same tone, Prabhupada is making it very clear that Arjuna's case is not a very highly glorified case. Arjuna's case is an eccentric case. The PDS, SDS, that type of case is going on. He is horrified by metal energy. And that's why that fear is leading to that impatience and his heart is burning. And because of this heart burning, the skin is burning. Prabhupada is saying that point. And therefore, Prabhupada is concluding, all this is because of a material conception of life. So this is very interesting. But this is paradoxical as well. So one verse back, Arjuna is a virtuous soul. So one verse back, Arjuna is such a virtuous soul. He's such a pure-hearted Vaishnava and so wonderful and such a glorious Acharya. All salutations to him. And one verse later, he's into all fear. So how to reconciliate the two? Now if you ask, okay, so is compassion a good quality? Well, yes, wonderful. Compassion is very good quality. Then one will say, okay, so is Arjuna's stand very good? We'll say, no, Arjuna's stand is bogus. But is Arjuna a noble soul? Yes, he is a noble soul. But is Arjuna in a bewildered state of mind? Yes, completely bewildered. So this is paradoxical. How to reconcile both the aspects? And interestingly, both the aspects are true. So this is the beauty of spiritual realm. The spiritual realm is such a wonderful realm that various contradictions can parallelly coexist. Because Krishna is like that also. Various contradictions can parallelly coexist in the Supreme Lord. Tattejati tannejati taddure tadavantike. So the Supreme Lord is Anu, the Supreme Lord is Vibhu, smaller than the smallest, the bigger than the biggest. Now we can say, okay, it may be a cyclic modeling, So we do that in modeling and simulations, the cyclic modeling like that. Or modular mathematics. From the highest you go to the lowest, the highest to the lowest. But the two contradictions are coexisting, is it not? And it says the Lord moves, but he does not move. And he sees and he does not see. So what is the Lord? That is the point. In the same spirit, we see that the fabric of spiritual energy is also like that. Various contradictions can coexist like that. So how do we understand this? So this phase is quite instructive because various lessons we can learn from it. The first aspect what we can learn from this apparent paradox is that divine qualities or material qualities are an important criterion for advancement in spiritual life. But the point to note is that the divine qualities are not a sufficiency condition. It is necessary in the proof of our spiritual awakening, but it is not sufficient. So the necessary aspect is fulfilled, but the sufficiency aspect is not fulfilled. The sufficiency aspect is only fulfilled by keeping our rudder pointer focus at the lotus feet of the Lord. And therefore, the topmost principle to rivet to is Sharanagati. The topmost principle to rivet to is Sharanagati. And Prabhupada establishes this point so nicely. The other day I was hearing a morning conversation of Srila Prabhupada, one of the conversations of Srila Prabhupada. And there was this gentleman from another religion, and and he was telling, you see, Swamiji, now one state of mind should be peaceful. Peacefulness is the criteria. Peaceful. And Prabhupada said, so there are so many animals who are peaceful. Huh? So if somebody is peaceful, does it guarantee that he will be very happy? So peacefulness may be a necessary condition of mind, but it's not sufficient. Prabhupada makes the point also When it comes to veg, no, vegetarianism, okay, so many animals are vegetarian. So what? But that doesn't mean they're very happy in life. But vegetarianism is necessary because the thoughts that, but it is not sufficient actually. So the sufficiency criteria is Shanagati, and that's why Prahlad Maharaj explains in his prayers this aspect. So if you see 799, second verse, the second of the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj, when he says, Manye dhana bijana rupa, tapa shroda ojasa, tejo prabhava bala paurusha buddhi yoga. Then he says, the fourth line he says is, Gajayuthapaya. And then he says, Vipradvisat guna yuta daravinda nabha, padaravinda vimukhat swapacham varishtam. Manye tadarpita pumanavati. What is that? Manye tadarpita manovachane hitartha puman punati sakulam natu bhuri manah. So this is 7, 9, 9, 10. And Srila Prahlad Maharaj is explaining that, oh Lord, you cannot be satisfied by great austerities, great intelligence, dexterity, diligence, renunciation, knowledge. But you can only be satisfied by that spirit of devotion, just like Gajendra Maharaj had. That offering of devotion to the Supreme Lord, that calling out to the Supreme. And therefore, in the next verse, he explains that even if one is a very expert, adept Brahmana, having all 12 Brahmanical qualities, Shama, Dama, Tapa, Shaucha, so on and so forth, but if one is not having that disposition of dependency on the Supreme Lord, then such a person is much worse than uh, than a dog eater, a person who's been born in a dog eater family, but he is disposed in devotion to the Lord. He is having that, he in Shanagati to the Lord, because such a dog eater, a person coming from such a family or from such a background, he can purify not only himself, not only his family, but the whole world. But whereas a Brahmana, adept in all Brahmanical qualities, cannot even purify himself. So this is the principle. Therefore, we see that, so therefore, this is the first understanding. The second understanding is that, you see, we may be having a spiritually very stable state, but still if we are not careful and if we allow material perceptions to creep in, it will shake us up. So spirituality is not a state dependent process. Bhagavatam is explaining this. From the Bhava platform, Bharat Maharaj got shaken up. Why? Because he he gave less priority, less weightage to association, to Shabda, and therefore the Pratyaksha took over. So Bhakti is not a state dependent process. It is a